The fight for the Walt Disney Company board of directors has been an interesting yet complicated one, and we've been trying to cover it from as many relevant angles as possible. There have been a number of players, and of course we've talked about Bob Iger and Trian, headed by Nelson Peltz, joined by former Disney CFO Jay Rasulo, and of course former Marvel chairman Ike Perlmutter. But there have been other players like Blackwells Capital and Value Act. Blackwells is like Trian trying to gain a few seats on the Disney board. But Value Act has been the odd man out. A lone investment company that is publicly and vociferously championing Bob Iger and the Walt Disney Company. And as you can see from this article in CNBC, Value Act has had a prior business relationship with the Walt Disney Company beyond just owning shares of stock. So who is Value Act? What do they do? What is their relationship with Disney? And why did the Walt Disney Company over the last 10 years pay Value Act roughly $95 million according to reports? Today, we're going to try to bring some clarity to those questions because, as always, here at Valliant Renegade, we put Hollywood and the entertainment industry through the business and financial lens of reality. Let's get into it.
Renegade Online.
Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valliant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many watching this video not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell. Share this sucker out on the social medias. And, of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. Make sure to join us every Sunday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern right here for the live show. This came out recently from CNBC. A Disney paid shareholder, specifically Value Act, millions in fees paid to them as part of a prior relationship. To help me discuss this, we have our friend from that Park Place, Mr. Jonas Campbell. What is up, Jonas?
So good to be here.
We want to be fair here because there is some nuance to this I want folks to understand, because there's regulatory components to this with the SEC, of course. This was filed. It's also on record here. Everything Value Act does usually gets an SEC filing if it's supporting Disney, just like Trian, just like Blackwell. So let's read into this here. Value Act managed more than $355 million in Disney pension funds prior to backing the company in a proxy fight with Nelson Peltz Trian Partners, a rival activist said. Blackwells raised questions, and of course it was Blackwells that put the story out, raised questions about Disney's relationship with Mason Morfett's Value Act, suggesting the company has heralded Morfett's support, meaning Disney, but has not been fully transparent about Value Act's financial benefit from the company. Value Act has collected some $95 million in fees from Disney since 2014. Now, we'll explain a little bit more detail in a minute, but let's go to the article. Blackwell said Monday the board had not disclosed, the Disney board, that shareholder Value Act Capital had a financial relationship. Mason Morfett and his $12 billion investment firm Value Act were heralded as constructive shareholders by Disney. CEO Bob Iger in January, when the company secured Value Act's backing ahead of an expected proxy fight with Nelson Peltz's Trian Partners. Blackwells Capital, which had previously voiced support for Iger and Disney management, said Value Act had been managing more than $350 million in Disney pension funds, dating from as far back as 2013 to at least 2022. And I'll explain in a minute why that's the most recent data that we have. Value Act was not managing Disney pension assets by the time it built a stake in the company in 2023, meaning actually owning Disney stock as part of their mutual funds or hedge fund portfolios. A person familiar with the matter told CNBC Disney had fully withdrawn its investment in the $12 billion investment firm by that time, and Value Act was not managing money for Disney when the investment firm signed an information sharing agreement with the company in January.
of all the people that they cite as contributing to the article and not commenting on the article, they say that Disney did not comment on the article. And
Yep.
Trian did not comment on the article.
Correct.
But that obviously leaves a very, Blackwells also did not respond to requests. So of the 4 entities listed in this article, only one of them is confirmed to have, not confirmed to have declined to comment.
Right. And the other thing that's important to note is that at one point, Trian also held a portion of the Disney pension assets. So I want to make that very clear. I want to put that out there. People don't think I'm skipping over something, because that is true as well. And we'll talk about what some of the differences are here.
So the $355 million in assets that were managed, I've heard that they could have received as much as $95 million. That's obviously a very big figure. But if they're managing for ostensibly about 10 years, I don't think that's a crazy amount of money for managing pensions for that many, for that large of a fund. But I wanted to get your expert opinion on that.
If you figure, okay, $335 million. Let's say that the folks out there watching have an IRA or a 401k. And in that 401k or IRA, you have a mutual fund from XYZ fund company, whatever. Pretend it's T. Rowe Price, BlackRock, Vanguard, American Funds, whatever. Doesn't matter. That mutual fund has a fund expense on it to basically pay the costs of operating and managing the fund, the trading that goes on with it, so on and so forth. Let's say the average fund expense out there is around 1%. It would be cheaper in a fund that would be holding assets at this scale inside of a pension. Maybe if it was actively managed, it might still be 50 to 75 basis points. But just to make the math easy, let's say it's 1%. If the value of ValueAct's holding during that 10-year period on average was $355 million, and it was at 1%, you figure that would be around $3 million per year. But this says it's $95 million. So they must have been doing something more than just managing a single fund or holding assets, or they could have been consultants. They could have been, it's difficult to tell. But $95 million over 10 years, even at $355 million, unless that was, it was $355 million maybe in 2022 at the last reporting, but 10 years earlier, or 5 years earlier, maybe it was a substantially larger portion. Maybe it was $1 billion. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But that's a pretty significant amount of fees over the course of time. And you think, well, it's one company, right? How many other people were involved in there besides just ValueAct? Well, as we mentioned, Trian also had a piece of the Disney pension, although, again, I have not gone back and dug through 10 years of these returns to try to sit here and determine what that may or may not have been. But what we're talking about here, and what I'm about to show you, folks, is a public document. This is a document that is filed each and every year for every pension plan and every 401k plan that is out there in the United States. It's called the Form 5500, and this is Disney's. This is the 5500 ERISA form for the Walt Disney Company Retirement Plan Master Trust that includes the Disney pension. As of the last filing in 2022, which is about right, usually the returns for these, the Form 5500 is usually due sometime between the summer and October each and every year is when we usually see these things get filed, especially for bigger, more complicated plans that might have a traditional defined benefit pension, plans that might have a profit-sharing component. This plan is of 2022, to give you an idea, and it's gonna get a little funky on here, I guess, but it's $15 billion. It's about $15 billion in this plan as of 2 years ago, which you think of a company the size of Disney with the number of employees it's had, as old as it is, pension benefits and everything, it's about right. So $355 million of a $15 billion plan, we're talking about not a huge chunk of it, right?
Now,
So,
as I understand it, a year earlier, this would have included Trian Fund Management. They pointed out in their own filings, the Disney white paper, if we want to call it that, says that they dropped pelts in their pension plan in 2021.
actually, Trian was still in here as of this report.
Oh,
Their name's in here. So
maybe it was calendar 2021 instead of fiscal 2021.
I think maybe so. At some point during this plan year, at some point in the calendar year of 2022, is when Trian would have bumped out for one reason or another. Probably because they were getting engaged in their first proxy fight, right?
Yeah.
So the point is with this is that if you look at this and we go down to, you see all these names here? All these names, these are all people that had a piece of the pie. You got BlackRock, you've got Bloomberg, Barclays Bank, you got Oaktree, Lexington Capital, Brandywine Investment Trust, Genesis. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And you can see here information on participating plans under this master trust. So this is one trust that manages multiple plans. And you can see here you've got Disney Associated Companies Retirement Plan. TWC Enterprises 18 Corp is the name of the sponsor, which is the master trust, effectively. Disney Salaried Pension Plan A, Plan D, 21st Century Fox America Retirement Plan. Wonder where they got that one.
Oh, I see. I see.
Pension Plan for Union Employees of 21st Century Fox.
That makes sense because what's their name? Great Value Act. Was here managing. They were invested in 21st Century Fox before the acquisition at this point.
Let's pull this back up again. The headline is that Value Act collected cumulatively $95 million in fees from Disney since 2014. Again, even over 10 years, it seems pretty impossible that they were collecting those fees as a management fee on just a simple mutual fund at $355 million in assets, right? So there was probably some other consulting for the pension going on, maybe some record keeping. I don't know. But that's a long period of time, and some of that was involved, it sounds like, with Fox. Did they need to report this beneficial relationship with Disney? Technically, I mean, as far as they didn't get involved in this at the time that there was any beneficial relationship. I mean, this is in Blackwells even talks about this, that they Value Act had not been a part of, insofar as we know, the Walt Disney Company's pension management, 401k management, or retirement plan management, since at least before they got involved publicly as a shareholder and then taking a side in this proxy fight. If they still had something, there would have needed to have been some disclosure.
Well, that's
certain FINRA and SEC regulations, I would imagine, but not
the very specific question that they allege here is in slide 10 of the SEC filing from Blackwells. They asked, should Value Act be considered a participant in the solicitation under their SEC rules? And they show notice of exempt solicitation on one of Value Act's filings. Mm-hmm. And they then go to the citation for what qualifies as an exempt solicitation, and they say, provided, however, that the exemption set forth in this paragraph shall not apply to, and then section 9, to receive a benefit from a successful solicitation. So if this is something that Value Act is trying to drum up business, or on the other side of this will become yet again a pension manager for the Walt Disney Company, receiving consulting fees and things like that.
Yeah.
That is I think that's what Blackwells is alleging. And I've mostly ignored or kind of chuckled at Blackwell's filings until that one. Mm-hmm. And that's where I go, okay, that's actually a really good question here, because they're in an information sharing agreement with the company that seems to have no record of what the reciprocity is. Mm-hmm. There. They have not disclosed how many shares they have in a significant way in the Walt Disney Company. So what is Value Act getting out of this arrangement here, other than just some some nice activity on their 21st Century Fox shares.
That's the issue. Now, if this goes the way that Disney hopes it goes, and then next year ValueAct is managing 20% of this pension, maybe some people might start raising some questions. But the fact of the matter is, like we just showed you on that ERISA filing, unlike private tax returns and stuff like that, you can't just go pull somebody's tax return,
right,
from the IRS.
Famously, you can't just go do that.
Yeah, famously, you can't just go do that, but somehow it does happen to the wrong think people. But in this case, these ERISA filings are public information. So when you have like even a tax ID number for an ERISA plan like this is all, you can literally, anybody can go search these records if you know where to go. There's no firewall to this. They're public documents. So that's the difference here. So you could make the argument, well, ValueAct and Disney have publicly reported for a decade that they had a mutually beneficial financial relationship in the way of the Disney employee plans.
They just didn't make it. They just didn't put it bold print in the current SEC filings.
Yeah,
and are going forward in the proxy fight. And there's a lot of filings going back and forth. There's hundreds of pages of filings going right now. So the idea that it could be there somewhere, okay, yeah, I could see that.
I think it's an interesting question to bring up by Blackwells, but again, give ValueAct, love them or hate them, the benefit of the doubt. They're not a new kid on the block. They've been doing this for years. I would kind of think that they have a compliance team that would know better than to screw up such an easy, big detail like that, is to not disclose that when it's out there for the whole world to see. What I do find interesting, though, is that, maybe this is Blackwells trying to make a little bit of noise, because I think Blackwells feels like they're not getting the attention they deserve. Everybody's talking about Peltz, Trian, Jay Rasulo, Ike Perlmutter. Disney is specifically cutting political style attack campaign ads against Trian, Peltz, Rasulo, and Perlmutter by name, and Disney has not even mentioned or paid attention to Blackwells once. I got a feeling Blackwells kind of feels like the little redheaded stepchild in the corner.
I won't disagree with that take, and I don't know that they shouldn't be considered that. Considering, I think if ValueAct was not a factor, it wouldn't be as enraging on the Blackwell side, because ValueAct coming in and their 19-page slide deck, 5 of those slides being title cards and disclosures that you have to make for compliance, and many of them being very light on data. And those people have a seat at the table. Whereas Blackwells did produce a 100-page slide deck, which was a white paper that, I disagree with most of their takes on the company, but they at least suggested some business ideas. Yeah. I don't think Disney would be served well by those people on the board. I do think that they would be served well by Jay Rasulo and Nelson Peltz on that board.
Yes.
But Blackwells is putting in at least some level of effort.
Slightly more than Disney, at least.
But Jason Aintabi putting on a hoodie and forgetting to turn off his air conditioner as he gives his testimonials from an iPhone in his office, not quite cutting it for me.
Yeah, really. And for the people asking about the Trian portion of this, remember, Trian is waging a proxy fight against the Walt Disney Company. They're certainly not working with them. ValueAct clearly is, and that's another big distinction. And that's why, Trian, like you saw, that list of hundreds of others they've had over the last several years, different partners, fund, or money managers and things like this. I mean, when you have a $15 billion pension, one of the biggest in corporate America, certainly, you're gonna have a lot of folks in there. It's everybody's gonna touch it at some point.
Diversify.
That's right. But the big thing is ValueAct acting in a way that could be seen, as Blackwells is suggesting, as trying to cozy back up to Disney, to maybe somewhere down the road, Disney thanks them by, bringing them back in for the pension. But even still, what do you do with that? That's something for the lawyers and everything to look at, not me. I'm make clear, we're not making any accusations here. We're just trying to get trying to give the audience a sense of maybe where Blackwells is going with some of this.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valliant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.